It's a story about his son and his father.
And we had this big pitch to Jeff Katzenberg. I go in and with the guys, and they've got the beat boards hung up. It was a sequence that was very funny, got big laughs. Some assistant comes in and lines up all these Diet Cokes for Jeffrey, and he comes in a big rush, and he's got all these people around him writing down everything he says. And he sits down, and he's looking, and I get 4 panels in, and he goes, "Hang on a second. Is this how this whole thing's going to be?" And I'm like, "What do you mean? Is it all going to be gags?" And I said, "Well," and Gary Kreisel, who was the president of the division, he jumps in there and he goes, "Yeah, well, this was some goofy center," and he cuts him off. Says, "No, I don't want to see this. Anybody can do this. I don't need to see this." He goes, "I want to see the heart. I want to see the heart." So he saw where that was going, and he was like, "No." So I was dismissed.
Showed the movie to Jeffrey Katzenberg.
At the end of the screening, and he just was like, the voice isn't working for him. And we're like, "What do you mean it's goofy?" And like, yeah, does it have to be?
What if Steve Martin were Goofy? Wouldn't that be fabulous? Imagine how you could sell that. That would be great. I think I asked Jeffrey, I said, "So that means you want Steve Martin to do the Goofy voice?" No. He's going to use his own voice so that we know who he is. Let me go back into it with Bill, and we'll record a bunch of the scenes with Bill doing it in his own voice.
They came to me and said, "Well, they think that your voice sounds too cartoony. Jeffrey Katzenberg wants you to do the voice in your voice." And I say, "You don't want me to go, oh, yo."
And in the room, and I said, "Listen, guys, we have to try this." And Bill has a complete meltdown.
I went home and I didn't get much sleep those days because I was worried, don't they want to hear Goofy when they hear a Goofy movie?
We showed it to him. I said, "I'm not behind this, Jeffrey." And we didn't do it. Jeffrey said, "I agree with you. We shouldn't do it." With all the cleanup people who were working at Disney Feature Animation, they were doing
that. You would have to get there at least by 6 in order to lay it all out for the projectionist. I always know my hands almost felt like they were had arthritis. I mean, they were just killing me because I was so tense leaning forward.
He was watching the movie completely like with his eyes closed. And then we go back and talk about the movie afterwards, and he'd give all these notes. And after Jeffrey left, I'd say, like, he was asleep through a half hour of the movie.
The way it worked is that the images were composited digitally, put up in a frame, and it was literally a film camera aiming down.
We also didn't project our dailies. So when we finished a scene, we didn't project anything. So I remember once we thought, we have to go in and look at this on the big screen and just make sure we're okay. And it was during one of those screenings that someone noticed the missing pixel. At that point, someone went back and checked the whole movie, checked all the negative, and there was a missing dot on the entire film. We were almost done with the movie, I think. It was so discouraging. We went back to the studio and said, "Hey, we have a problem." So we had to go back and reshoot the entire movie again, which pushed us.
And then you can't trust anything that you've watched. And then it becomes like a game, a very unpleasant game, where you have to sit and scrutinize shot after shot after shot. I remember.
You know, who would have thought that it would take us shooting a whole movie before we realized, oh great, now we have to go back and start completely over again. There was a big fight between he and Michael Eisner. Jeffrey was out. When Jeffrey left, we all knew that we were in trouble as far as even whether or not we'd get a release.
About his son and his father. Since I can remember, one of my favorite things to do is watching movies with my dad. I was confused why my dad had to leave, but he did. Films became my escape. I watched everything I could get my hands on. Then, one day, my mom brought home a VHS tape who just wanted to spend time with his son.
"I'm not giving up on you, son. Together, we're gonna work this out."
I watched it on repeat. Day after day, a Goofy movie became a comfort. It was the story I needed at the time I needed it. This film connected me to my father in ways that sometimes a character as silly as Goofy can mean so much more.
In this movie with my dad, it gave us the ability to actually speak to each other, to find some equal ground. That we watched this movie together, and my dad suddenly was asking me questions about who I was, and that there's another side of this story. Oh, I gained sort of complete understanding that my dad's dealing with a lot of things in his life, and there's a whole nother side to who he is that I had never seen before. Those are the stories that I find